Living a Healthy Lifestyle show with your favorite holistic health coach, Carrie Kay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Living a Healthy Lifestyle show with your favorite holistic health coach, Carrie Kay. I want to welcome Donald to the show. This is Donald L. Dowridge Jr., and he's my soul Santa, and he has some soul Santa stories coming up. So, a little bit about him. He was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and he is retrieved from the foster care system. So that's really a very, very interesting part of his story. But he was transported to the south of the Bronx, where he lived for just 6 months or 6 more harsh, abusive years at the hands of his biological father. And he's taken his ministry and his experiences to Tampa, Florida, and he's already made that tradition, and he's already doing all kinds of books and stuff. This book that we're going to be talking about a little bit is The Power of Being a Winner. It's one of my favorite books that I read. Welcome to the show, Soul Santa, Donna Dowridge. How are you?
Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. I came all the way down from the North Pole to be with you today. Thanks for having me on. Ho, 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 ho. Merry
So how are you
Christmas.
today? How are you doing today?
I am marvelous. I am fantastic. I got my reindeers parked outside, and I fed them. So they're waiting on me so we can go ahead on and start making our rounds.
Yay, Santa. So tell me, how did all this get started with you working with the umbrella effect? I do want to talk a little bit about that. It's near and dear to my heart because you've been the MC for how many years?
As a matter of fact, I was blessed to be the MC of the Umbrella Effect for 3 solid years. And it was a gas. I enjoyed it. I mean, the audience there, they were marvelous. And just the mere fact of having the opportunity as a veteran to address the veterans that were there for the occasion was totally, totally a blessing. And not only that, Kathy, Rosalind, all of them, they played a vital part in allowing me to step up to the plate and be the MC. As you know, I mean, it has totally enhanced, inspired, and not only that, it allowed the veterans to see how worthy they are and how much we appreciate what they have done to continue to assist in this country being free as we are.
Amen. Amen. So when I asked you to be on the show, Donald, I've been advertising a lot of your Soul Santa. That's pretty cool. Like, how did all that get started?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. How did Soul Santa begin? Well, believe it or not, it was way back in the year of 2013. I just happened to be, it was Christmas morning. I was asked because of my joyous nature to don the outfit. They knew without hesitation. I jumped right in it. And Soul Santa was born in 2013. Now, I don't know if I should let this out, however, but I'm going to go ahead on and let it out. Back in the days, there was a show called Soul Train with the late, great Don Cornelius, who was the host. Well, I kind of, instead of this being Santa Claus, I wanted to add another additive to it. I wanted to enlighten it. I wanted, when people said Santa, prior to saying Santa, I want them to have a joyous occasion and a joyous feeling that flow through them when they mention, before they get to Santa. So I had to go and I had to think, how can I do that? Well, by the way, Soul Train came to mind. So I just took the train off and I kept the soul. And that was the birth of Soul Santa. Yes, ma'am. So Santa has been around for exactly, let's see, 11 years.
Wow.
11 years. Yes. This marks
Great.
the 11th year of Soul Santa.
Well, that's great. I wanted to talk a little bit about the books that you've written and how you've inspired so many people to the power of being a winner. When I read that book, I was going through some really, really hard times. I was also kind of questioning myself on whether or not I could do the assignment that God had put before me. So tell us a little bit about your books, and because I know you've written a couple of them and I just have the one, but I really love that power of being a winner. Share with us where that inspired you to write that book and do that series.
Well, like all of us, we have a period, if you will, that we go through before we find the true essence of ourselves through the grace of God. And I went through that period. And believe it or not, the book was originally written in 1995. I went to Church Without Walls at that time. That was Pastor White and Paula White, and I forget her husband's name at the time. They had a very special guest in the house. And that special guest was no other than the late, great Miles Monroe. I had read a lot of his books. I ordered a lot of his videos prior to seeing him. So he played an essential role in me coming to fruition, if you will. So hearing that he was in town, and at the time I was still working at the post office, I was a manager, I made it my point to be there, and I believe it was on a Wednesday evening. Well, I went there, I sat on the front pew, and I heard every word that Mr. Monroe said, and it just went through my body as if it was like blood flowing through. And I'll have you know, Carrie, when it was all said and done, quite naturally, I popped up and I ran to him and I said, "Sir, can I please have a few minutes with you?" Well, he said, "Yes, you can, but if you got the time, I will do it." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "It's going to be an hour or so." Carrie, I sat there for maybe about 2 hours until he shook everybody's hand, until his meeting with Pastor White was over, until he could take a minute for himself, and then it was him and I. I have you know, I did not leave that church probably until 11 or 12 that morning. The whole time I sat there, Mr. Miles Monroe, he poured into me. And I'll have you know, I was like a sponge. I was soaking everything up. Now, keep in mind, I had to be to work the next morning at 8 o'clock. I did not go to bed. Once I got home, I did not go to bed and probably until 4. What was I doing from the time I left that church till 4 o'clock in the morning? I was writing. I was writing. I mean, he inspired me so much. I believe that night I wrote maybe about 5 chapters of that book. It was just coming to, it's just coming. So quite naturally, the book was not done. It took maybe about another couple of months before I was able to complete it. And once I completed it, here comes the denial, which we all have. Here comes that voice, which we all have. Here comes that pessimistic. Here comes that negativity that we all have stuck inside our brain. Ain't nobody gonna buy that book. Why are you writing that? Put it away. But better yet, throw it away. These were the words that I heard. Well, instead of being obedient, I did put it away. No, I did not throw it away. I put it away. Are you ready for this? I put that book away for 17 years. 17 years that book was stashed in my drawers. At one point, I had totally forgotten about the book. Well, 2013 comes along, or should I say 2012 comes along, and I take the book to watch night, which is December the 31st, 2012. I take the book, the manuscript, rather. I took the manuscript to church with me, and I prayed over it. June of 2013, the book emerged. God is so good. Not only did the book emerge, it emerged in 5 different languages. It came out #1 on Barnes and Nobles. And the sales just sort of kind of went through the roof unexpectedly. I had no idea what I was about to step into. But the responses from the book that I still get today, all these years later, is how many people have been inspired, how many people have been lifted, how many people have taken a second look at themselves, how many people have elevated their life, and despite what they have went through to get to this exact moment of their life, they can definitely say that partially, I ain't gonna say wholly, holistically, but partially, that book played somewhat of a role in their life. Not only did it play a role in their life, but believe it or not, I'm the author. I wrote the book. It still plays a role in my life. Just the mere fact that, as you mentioned in the beginning of the show, where I come from, and to have this book to emerge to the top as it did was something special in my life. So it helped me to climb over, jump over the nemesis of negativity, to allow me to say through God that, hey, I can accomplish a feat. I can move forth in greatness. I can overcome the obstacles and, of course, resilience. And a lot of times we just have to have perseverance, because as is noted, sometimes it doesn't happen when you want it to happen, but you got to trust in God that in the exact time that is scheduled to happen, it will happen. Sometimes we don't know when it's going to happen. A dreadful example would be this holiday season. Not to bring sadness into the picture, but as we look forward to Christmas, as it's written in the book, nobody knows the day or the time that God will come calling. Once we get to January 1st, 2025, and before I say this, allow me to say that I pray to God that no one disappears during this holiday season, because I know how hurtful it can be. But we as human beings, we do not have the control, or we do not have the remote control of our life per se. Sure, we can get up and we can do 24 hours of what we desire to do. But the question is, who has the switch of when the clock on the wall says that's all? I had a conversation this morning where it just seems like every minute, it's like when you blink your eyes, it's a whole year that went by. Where is the time, if you will, disappearing to so quickly? So we don't have control over time, but we do have control over what we do within the time that we have. So we all come through some type of issue, some type of pain, some type of agony. But the moral of the story is, we are not failures. And so when you talk about the book, The Power of Being a Winner, WINNER, I brought it out as an acronym. The W is basically to wade through the issues. Sometimes we have to go against the tide. I see as such as an ocean, such as a pool. As a matter of fact, I was at Busch Gardens one year, and me being a good swimmer, they have this ride, if you will, where the water just rushes out. So when the water, I mean, everybody just standing on dry land. Next thing you know, here come the water. It's rushing out, and I'm trying to swim against the tide. Well, quite naturally, the water was coming so fast that the tide took me out. But the moral of the story is, in life, sometimes you have to go against the grain. You have to wade through all the issues that's coming to us, intending to stop us, intending to get in the way, intending to make you comfortable at where you are. So it's one thing to say, tomorrow morning when I get up, I'm going to go do X, Y, Z. Tomorrow morning you get up and your brain says, I'm just going to lay here. 5 o'clock that evening come, now you're saying, darn, I didn't do anything. Another wasted day. So you have to wade through the nemesis that tends to disguise itself as your friend. In reality, it's stopping you in your tracks. The I, knowing how to be independent. A lot of us say, I tend to be, I'm a loner. I tend to be by myself. But then you have a lot of us who tend to follow the crowd. Now, when I say tend to follow the crowd, one might think that children do that. Teenagers do that. Adults do it as well. When you tend to talk about gangs, you want to tend to talk about street gangs. But there's a lot of other gangs that we all are part of. But you can be in those gangs, but be independent to yourself. Meaning, you go out, you learn what you learn or what you can grasp, and then you begin to use it for yourself. I spoke earlier about the sponge. You gather this information, and then you turn around and use the same information to educate the masses that are awaiting you. That's independent. Somebody told me, as a matter of fact, it was Les Brown, who I had the distinct pleasure to be his chauffeur for a weekend. And he told me, sitting right next to me in the car, he said, son, this is a lonely business. I questioned. I said, what do you mean lonely business? He said, it's a lonely business because a lot of people do not grasp this life because they want to be a part of. So when you're doing what you're doing, for instance, what you're doing, it can tend to be a lonely life because you have goals that you're trying to reach. You know your purpose. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that don't know their purpose. They live a whole life with no purpose. And when it's all said and done, sometimes it leads, while that body is laying there, it leads to the pastor, if you will, flipping through the pages of the Bible to say something good about that individual who unfortunately did not take hold of the purpose that God had given them while they were here. Notice, well, we all have what is called peripheral vision. My peripheral vision, when I was 15, walking down 3rd Avenue late at night in the Bronx. While I was walking down 3rd Avenue, what's coming flying by my ear? a bullet. And I heard it. It said, whoosh. And I said, oh, that was a bullet. And believe it or not, from that point on, my head was like an owl. I was watching everything. And that's where I learned, which I call it, instead of the peripheral vision, I call it the 180-degree eye span. Because it allows me to use these pupils of mine to see, survey, scan my surroundings. So that's notice. Notice your surroundings. Notice all the opportunities that are there for you. They say, I'm waiting on God. My question is, why are you waiting on God? Why are you waiting on Jesus? Hush your mouth, Donald Dowridge. No. I say it like that because if you know Jesus, love Jesus, read Jesus' word, he already states that he's there opening the door for you. So when he's there opening up the door, all we have to do, like the old song said, get up, get into it, get involved. James Brown, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end. Notice. The other end, neutral. Yeah, sometimes we just have to stand back and zipper up and put these on display. Sometimes we have to stand back, zipper up. If we don't have these on display, guess what? We got two of these. We can decipher. We can discern what is coming at us. And in that case, we're in a neutral mode. We have what is called in the back of our head a membrane. We have what is in front of our brain a frontal lobe. It's just like when we eat. Our taste buds on our tongue delivers the taste, whether or not it's good or whether it's not good, if you will. Well, the frontal lobe, it just goes in and sometimes it disappears. How many times have we heard, wait a minute, do you have a brain in there? It just went in one and it came right out the other. I was with a group of kids yesterday and I was telling them, I said, look, I said, when it goes in, some of it digests here and then the rest leaves, meaning that after speaking an hour, if you will, I let them know, you're not going to remember everything that I said. That's why you have pencil and paper. So you can write down, so you can take notes, and you can study what was said later. So eventually, it can travel back to the membrane.
Well, that's a really great analogy. I'm glad that you brought that up. We just have about 8 minutes left in the show.
Wow, that quick?
Yep, it did go by quick. So tell me a little bit about what the Holy Spirit is telling you that you're going to do in the future with helping people with this education. I mean, it's just such a great idea to go out and educate people. And like you said, if you have gifts and you don't use them, God gives us gifts. But the problem is that people don't use those gifts. They're either too afraid to use those gifts, or like you said, somebody said something to create them a stronghold in their mind. So if you were going to talk to people as Soul Santa and they were really trying to do something, but they were feeling like they were being hindered or they didn't want to move forward due to fear, what would the advice be that you would give them, Soul Santa?
Well, we all got purpose. The moral of the story of purpose is that we have to find out what our true purpose is. And when we're looking for that purpose, quite naturally, we rely on God to give us the answer. But while we're here, we have to look at, because everybody got something that they love to do. But we have to cipher out the denials. We have to cipher out the negativity. we have to cipher out the biggest one, I can't. I was telling my group yesterday, I said that when I was 7 years old and I was in the foster care, the next door neighbor used to come pick me up and take me to town shopping with her. From the time she would pick me up on Saturday, take me to in town Baltimore to the Lexington market and bring me back. The whole time she's speaking to me, she's telling me that I'm no good. I'll be dead by the time I turn 30. Why live? I'm worthless. And would you believe I ate that? So much so that when I took on my 30th birthday here in Tampa, that night, prior to going to bed, I was invited out by some friends. I said, nope, I'm not going. And I actually told them, they said, why are you not going? I said, because I'm scheduled to die tonight. They said, what? I said, yeah. I was 29 going on 30. And I actually told them I'm dying tonight. The next morning I woke up with my suit on because I figured, I didn't know about the embalming fluid and blah, blah, blah. So I figured they'd just come scoop me up and put me in the casket and drop me. Well, the next morning I woke up, look at God. I pinched myself while I was laying in the bed with my little suit on. I pinched myself and I said, I pinched as hard as I could because I wanted to make sure that this was not Donald the Friendly Ghost, that this was Donald Dowridge in life. Well, that myth died that morning. So moving forth in one's life, we have to X out all the negativity of what you can't do. And you have to gather that steam to be able to walk strong in the path, on the path that God has designed especially for you. We don't understand that on the day that we were born, all of us, the world stopped and gave us a standing ovation. What are you talking about? Because we all come in with gifts and talents. It says it in Matthew's, gifts and talents. The moral of the story is we must awaken to use the talents and gifts that we have. When I see people back in the days, I think it was during Bush era or somewhere in that era, a lot of people were getting pink slips. What am I going to do? Oh, Lord, what am I going to do? Not realizing the amount of time that they put in on that job, that was preparing them to step out into the world as an entrepreneur.
Amen.
To take the lessons that they were being paid for and come out in the world and create their own business from working for somebody else, turning themselves into a prima donna entrepreneur.
That's exactly what I did. I had to reinvent myself to do what I'm doing. That's what you have to do. I mean, especially when these times come, like where, like for instance, back in 2020, it was a hard time and people just had to reinvent themselves. So I totally agree with you on that. So we got about 3 minutes left in the show. And I was just wondering, is there anything coming up in the future that you're excited about, Donald?
Well, I'm glad you asked, and you did ask that question early. I went off into a tandem. Pardon me.
Okay.
Of course, we're in the season of giving, which is Christmas, and Soul Santa is here to deliver happiness, joy, and smiles on a lot of our faces during this time that we have. Also coming up in February will mark 15 years of portraying Frederick Douglass. I traveled the country portraying Frederick Douglass, which has truly been a joy. It has been a miracle on 34th Street, to be honest with you. Just to be able to learn about this great hero, this great African-American hero who rose from slavery to the point that he walked side by side with President Abraham Lincoln and all the other extraordinary opportunities that knocked on his door. Not one time did Mr. Douglas say, hey, I'm not interested, I'm not doing it. Until he died on February the 20th, 1895. He constantly moved the needle forward. I am currently reading a book on the life of John Lewis. If you know anything about him during his time here on earth, he had a quote: whatever you do, make sure it's good trouble. Get in some good trouble.
That's some great
And that is what Mr. Douglas did with his life.
Awesome.
Also,
well, we only have 1 minute left, Donald.
Okay, I'm in the midst of celebrating 50 years here in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Come January, I will sit down at my desk and I will begin writing my 15th book entitled simply 50.
Yay!
Representing 50 years in Tampa.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. You had a lot to talk about. We got a lot in just this minute that we have left. So just want to thank you so much for being on the show and giving us your inspiration. And The Power of Being a Winner is just an awesome book. And Soul Santa, get out there and make kids smile this Christmas, okay? God bless.
God bless. And real quick, The Power of Being a Winner is still available. You can get it. You can call me directly, 813-394-5875. But even more so, you just go to social media, Google